Welcome back to Times Square. Well, as promised, there's this big story that's going on in the Garden State, and I have friends from all over that state that over the last 48, 72 hours a week have been sending me footage, and it's looked kind of, like something you see on the cover of the National Enquirer, something, sketchy footage with lights, and you don't know what they are. But there's enough people now that are seeing them all over the state of New Jersey that I thought it's time to get some analysis of this. So we're talking about the drones that are rumored to be rather large, flying all over one state in particular. Paul Benné, the founder of Sentinel Consulting, is with us. And Paul, you've talked to us about security issues before. Security is one of it's your expertise. It's what you are most steeped in. And you're joining us from your command center. And you've been following this, at least that I know of, for the last couple of nights. What do we know about what is happening in the skies over some pretty, harmless towns in New Jersey?
Well, Kevin, thanks for having me on to discuss this. I think it's important to note that in the Northeast, we have an extremely congested airspace. There are aircraft of all sizes flying in every direction possible. So when you look up at the night sky, most people aren't acclimated to looking up at the night sky. But now the attention has been called there. And what they're seeing is an enormous amount of air traffic. With that said, we've also been monitoring, and our mobile command vehicle has drone detection equipment in it. And the way our drone detection systems work is that they look for the radio frequency that comes off of typical drones. And that allows us to identify where it is, where it's flying, where the pilot is. This is not happening. We are not getting indications from RF signals. Therefore, you have to rely on radar. Now, we did also visually monitor the night sky in northern New Jersey, and we did see multiple aircraft flying that were not characteristic of winged aircraft. And so that leads me to believe, would this be a helicopter? But the sustained flight, the duration of the flight, and the characteristics of the lighting were not that of helicopters. So it would then lead us to believe that it's some type of unmanned aerial aircraft.
So that's a mouthful to explain, but you did a very good job of it. If it's not a normal drone that's throwing off an RF signal of some sort, what is your inclination? Well, first of all, are these normal drone sizes? I mean, consumers own drones and they fly around, and our village had a tree lighting a couple of weeks ago, and they had drones flying in and out, taking pictures of the big gathering of people. We do live in the age of drones, but there's rumors in some of these news stories that these things are the size of cars or SUVs. Like, what do you know about how big they are?
Yeah, and from what we observed, we are observing larger aircraft. Look, the commercially available drones, the consumer drones, they're very small. And in fact, they're very difficult to see at distance. So for people to be able to spot these with the naked eye, they have to be sizable. Now, when you talk about commercially available drones, these are ones that are used for different purposes, such as agriculture or scanning buildings and doing thermal studies. They are larger commercially available drones. They are not what we're seeing. What we're seeing, their duration of flight, the distance that these vehicles are covering, and the size that we're able to actually see are not characteristic of consumer or commercially available drones.
Okay, this leads me to some very uncomfortable questions because our airspace is sovereign. Our military, our security forces should be able to, and we normally do, shoot down things that pose as a menacing force in our sky, especially if it has the power to do damage. What is the government saying? What is law enforcement saying? What is the FBI, CIA, whoever? What are they saying about what this is?
There's some very capable hands in the government, and they're not going to release statements that are going to be misleading or misdirecting. So they're going to want to really confirm information before they put it out to the public. I can tell you that typically they're going to be looking at a lot of information, radar data, ground-based data, that is going to help them validate what they're seeing. It is perfectly legal to fly a drone under 55 pounds and be compliant with the FAA. So there are nighttime flight rules, there are line of sight flight rules, and all of these things still apply. But someone could be potentially flying one of these drones, one of these aircraft, and be compliant with the FAA and not have the scrutiny of.
But then why wouldn't the FAA come out and say, nothing to worry about here. We know exactly what this is. This is a consumer drone, and just put everybody's mind at ease. Like the fact that, well, and that's a bigger problem, because if we can trace an Iranian drone taking off from Tehran as it's making its way to Tel Aviv, and we can see it from stem to stern, we can't do that on our own shore?
Yeah. Yeah. And, that is a problem. And look, the technology that's out there, when you look at the technology that's used to track commercial air flight, these radar systems are tuned to track aircraft the size of either small or large planes. They're not tuned to track these small drones. And even when you're talking about something the size of a car, in terms of aircraft, that is still small. And so the typical systems that the FAA would use to track flight patterns and aircraft in a geographic area are not the same type of equipment that's needed to track drone activity in an area.
I better hope against hope that the military knows what this stuff is and has the ability to figure it out and sense it and take care of it if it's necessary. But it is freaking people out all over the state of New Jersey. And Paul Benny of Sentinel Consulting, so glad that you're able to shed a little bit of light on this for us. If people want more info about your services, and by the way, your mobile command centers are mobile for a reason. You actually do a lot of big time security for events and other things. And if people had questions about that, sentinelgroup.us, sentinelgroup.us, to be in touch with Paul and his team. Kevin McCullough, Paul, thank you.
Stick around for more of That Kevin next. That Kevin Show.